King Agaja of Dahomey was one of the most formidable rulers in African history, a visionary monarch, a shrewd strategist, and a complex figure who navigated the turbulent crossroads of war, trade, and diplomacy in the early 18th century. His reign, which began around 1718, marked the dawn of Dahomey's golden age and transformed a modest inland kingdom into one of the most powerful empires in West Africa. Agaja's legacy is one of both conquest and contradiction, of brutal warfare and ambitious reform, of defiance against European dominance and participation in the global trade systems that would forever reshape the continent. His story is not easily told in simple terms, for Agaja was both a man of his time and far ahead of it. When Agaja rose to the throne, Dahomey was still in its infancy as a kingdom. His father, Agaja, and brother, Akaba, had begun consolidating the small plateau region of Dahomey, uniting several local chiefdoms under royal authority. But Dahomey was hindered by powerful coastal states like Alada and Wada, which dominated the lucrative Atlantic trade routes. These kingdoms had grown wealthy through commerce with European merchants who established forts and ports along the Gulf of Guinea, exchanging weapons, textiles, and goods for enslaved Africans. Agaja quickly realized that if Dahomey were to survive and thrive, it needed to break through this coastal blockade. The young king wasted no time. His first target was Alada, a kingdom rich in history and prestige. In 1724, Agaja unleashed his army upon Alada in a campaign that shocked neighboring rulers. His forces, well trained, disciplined, and fiercely loyal, used tactics that combined traditional West African warfare with innovations that reflected his sharp strategic mind. Agaja's army moved swiftly, using decoy maneuvers and ambushes to outflank the defenders. When the dust settled, Alada fell, and Dahomey emerged as a new military force to be reckoned with. But Agaja was not satisfied. His eyes were already set on the coast, on Wada, a kingdom whose ports opened directly onto the Atlantic world. In 1727, Agaja launched his boldest campaign yet, the conquest of Wada. This was not just a war of expansion, it was a statement of power. Wada's rulers had long collaborated with European traders, allowing the Portuguese, English, and French to establish forts along the shoreline. By taking Wada, Agaja was not merely defeating a rival African kingdom, he was seizing control of the interface between Africa and Europe. His troops stormed the coastal forts, and the Europeans, though technologically superior, were too divided and dependent on local allies to mount an effective resistance. By the end of the campaign, Dahomey controlled one of the most important stretches of coastline in all of West Africa. Agaja's conquest of Alada and Wada transformed Dahomey's economy overnight. He now controlled the key ports through which European goods flowed inland, and African captives were shipped across the Atlantic. Yet his relationship with the slave trade was complex and deeply conflicted. On one hand, Agaja recognized the immense wealth and power that participation in the trade could bring. On the other, he understood the social devastation it caused. Oral histories and European correspondences from the time suggest that Agaja initially tried to curtail or reform the slave trade. He attempted to redirect commerce toward agricultural goods like palm oil, cotton, and ivory, sending envoys to European traders proposing more sustainable trade agreements. But his efforts were largely rebuffed. The Europeans were not interested in fair exchange. Their fortunes depended on the traffic in human lives. Faced with an unyielding system and surrounded by rival states eager to profit from it, Agaja made a pragmatic decision. If Dahomey could not end the trade, it would control it. He imposed royal oversight on all transactions, ensuring that the profits flowed to the crown rather than to independent warlords. This policy allowed Dahomey to arm itself with European muskets and cannon tools necessary to maintain sovereignty in an increasingly militarized world. Yet Agaja's rule also reveals the deep moral dilemmas African leaders faced in the 18th century, the impossible balance between survival and complicity, resistance and adaptation. Domestically, Agaja was a reformer as much as a conqueror. He centralized his administration, creating a system that fused traditional governance with a proto-bureaucracy. Local chiefs were replaced or subordinated to royal officials, known as Bajito and Yovogan, who reported directly to the throne. He also restructured the military, transforming Dahomey's armies into one of the most organized fighting forces in West Africa. This included the early formation of what would later become the legendary Dahomey Amazons, an all-female regiment of elite warriors trained in hand-to-hand combat and battlefield discipline. While the Amazons reached their peak under later kings, Agaja laid the foundation for their rise by recognizing the military potential of women in a society. that valued loyalty and bravery above gender. To legitimize his rule and unify his diverse subjects, Agaja turned to culture and spirituality. He expanded the royal palace complex at Dahomey into a grand architectural and symbolic statement. The walls were decorated with bas-reliefs depicting his victories, each image serving as both art and propaganda. He strengthened the voting religion as a unifying cultural force, integrating conquered people's gods into the royal pantheon. Annual ceremonies, known as the Customs of Dahomey, became both sacred festivals and displays of royal authority. During these events, Agaja would distribute wealth, honor warriors, and make offerings to the ancestors, reaffirming the divine right of kingship that underpinned his rule. Agaja's influence extended beyond Dahomey's borders. His kingdom became both a feared military power and a center of political diplomacy. He maintained cautious but calculated relations with the Yoruba Empire of Oyo, a powerful neighbor to the north. Though Dahomey paid tribute to Oyo for a time to avoid destruction, Agaja used this relationship strategically buying peace while strengthening his army. This pragmatic diplomacy allowed him to focus on internal consolidation and coastal control, ensuring that Dahomey remained strong long after his reign. Yet for all his power, Agaja's reign was not without controversy or contradiction. His wars caused immense suffering, displacing thousands of people and spreading instability across the region. His participation in the slave trade, though economically motivated, contributed to the human tragedy of the transatlantic slave system. But to judge him solely by these standards would be to misunderstand the world he lived in. Agaja was navigating a landscape dominated by European greed and African survival. His actions, while morally complex, were driven by a desire to protect his people's sovereignty in an era when independence was rapidly disappearing across the continent. By the time of his death in 1740, King Agaja had transformed Dahomey into one of the most formidable and centralized states in West Africa. He left behind a kingdom that was economically powerful, militarily disciplined, and culturally vibrant. His successors, including his son Besu, inherited not only his throne, but his system of governance, a legacy that would sustain Dahomey for generations. The palaces he built still stand in Dahomey today, recognized by UNESCO as World Heritage Sites. Their walls, adorned with the symbols of his reign, a shark, a sword, and the image of a conquering king, still tell the story of a man who refused to let his nation remain small. King Agaja's life defies easy categorization. He was a conqueror and a diplomat, a reformer and a pragmatist, a ruler whose ambition expanded the horizons of his people, but also bound them to the turbulent tides of global commerce. His story is a reminder that African kings were not passive observers of history. They were actors shaping it in real time, contending with forces both foreign and familiar. In remembering Agaja, we see not just the might of Dahomey, but the resilience of Africa itself, a continent that has always fought to define its own destiny, even when the world sought to take it away. Follow for more history they never taught us in school.